This story is based on real events. Names and details were changed to protect privacy. If it resonates with you, please like, subscribe, and share. News stories daily. Trevor picked the trail, which should have been my first warning. He hates dirt. Easy loop, Mom, he said. The word easy stretched thin as cellophane. Kayla smiled with her wedding photo smile and handed me a brand new trekking pole for balance. The morning was postcard blue, the kind of Colorado day that makes you forgive everything. On the drive up, my phone chimed with a message I'd never seen before. Unknown AirTag moving with you. I frowned. Kayla leaned forward from the back seat and laughed. Probably someone's keys in the next car, she said, tapping the screen like she was shooing a fly. I let it go, the way mothers let too much go. At the trailhead, Kayla tightened the strap on my pack, fingers lingering longer than help requires. There, she said brightly, wouldn't want you to slip. How my hell, 62, stubborn as a pine, offered me his hand. Short walk, he murmured, then pie. We were grandparents who still told each other the truth in small jokes. We were also walking into a plan. The overlook arrived like a dare. No guardrail, just a polite wooden post with a sun-bleached warning, sheer drop. The valley exhaled below a silver river, dark fur, hawk drawing cursive in the air. Trevor pretended to take pictures. Kayla pretended to fix my collar. Step closer, she said. The light is better. I did. Because for 35 years I have wanted my son's life to have good light. The push didn't feel like a shove. It felt like gravity changing its mind. A jolt, a gasp, the world tilting into white sky. Hal reached for me, missed, caught, missed again. We weren't screaming, there wasn't time. We fell past a skim of shale, past a tuft of grass that had no interest in heroics, and then the rock face took us the way hard things take you. With rules. We didn't fall far. A ledge arrested us like a seatbelt you never knew you owned. I hit first, shoulder and hip, angles arguing. Hal hit second, breath punched out, eyes wide with the old anger he carries for himself when he can't stop something. We lay there in a tangle of living. Above, footsteps, quick then quiet. Kayla's voice, small and practiced. Oh my God, Trevor. Call 911, she slipped. Trevor's answer was a whisper I felt in my bones more than heard with my ears. We leave now. The syllables fell like stones. I looked at Hal. His mouth made the shape of my name without sound. Blood had found his temple but didn't love it enough to stay. My shoulder was a siren. My legs reported for duty anyway. We listened. No running, no rope, no rescue. Just wind and the indifferent hymn of a hawk. Hal and I have been married long enough to have a vocabulary made of glances. In his I read, they meant it. In mine he found, then we choose what happens next. Pack, we die twice. I whispered it toward me, breath knitting. Inside, once for them, the little redundancies of our lives, or we die once. A Mylar blanket, the way we decide. 2 bottles of water. He nodded one precise a roll of nod that turned 2 frightened people into a Kayla team. Insisted he shrugged off his selfies from trees. I smiled at that small feral. We inventory our hurts. Hal's rib on the left was talking too loud, but not shouting. My shoulder would need a doctor with good hands and a story to tell. Nothing was broken that bravery couldn't borrow against. Narrow shelf that sideways the cliff like an afterthought. Pointing to a not up, not down. Sideways was faith with a foothold. I wrapped the Mylar around our packs to kill the shine. We belly crawled, inch by patient inch, palms testing grit, boots whispering on stone. The ledge squeezed, widened, squeezed again, like the mountain was deciding how much of us it could stand. After a crawl that lasted 5 minutes or 50 years, the shelf turned and gentled into a gully padded with needles and fallen time. Trees took us in. The breath I'd been saving finally arrived. We hit there, backs to rock, while my phone searched for a signal it wouldn't find. I pulled it out anyway. The AirTag alert had cleared, replaced by the ordinary arrogance of a battery icon. I thought of Kayla's hands on my pack again, tightening, smoothing, placing. I saw the future the way you sometimes see weather coming. Big, inevitable, and not impressed with you. Ellie, Hal said softly, listen to me. I'm listening. No police yet. Not out here. We need dark. We need distance. And we need proof. If they think we're dead, they'll talk. If they talk, We catch it. The hawk tipped a wing and wrote yes on the air. Hal wasn't guessing. He was confessing an old instinct that had kept us safe more than once. Let bad men relax before you put the cuffs on. I nodded again and let the plan take me like a current. Night. Proof. Notifying only the kind of law that knows how to stand still. We would feed the part of the story that kept us breathing and starve the part that thought it was finished with us. We took stock of what we had. Water, gauze, cord, a cheap whistle, 2 stubborn hearts, and a marriage fluent in triage. What we didn't have: immediate help, certainty, mercy we could borrow from time if we didn't panic. First rule, I said, because rules are blankets. No heroics. Second, no phones unless we're sure they can't find us by them. Third, we pick the moment when we stop being dead. Hal's smile was a crack in stone, letting something green be possible. He kissed my scraped knuckles like a contract. Pie later, he said. Pie later. I agreed, and we began the long, deliberate work of surviving a day that had tried to write our ending. We stayed pressed to the mountain until our breathing matched the wind. Panic wants to sprint. Survival walks. Hal touched his ribs, counted to 10 without flinching, and nodded. Pain, not emergency. My shoulder burned like a brand, but my fingers obeyed. We were alive on a ledge that had no interest in congratulating us. Above, quiet, the kind that means somebody chose it. No shouts for help. No rattle of rope. No good sense. Trevor and Kayla had left the way cowards leave, quickly, with a story already forming in their mouths. We don't climb, Hal whispered. We move smart. Smart started with small things. He tore a strip from his undershirt and made a sling for my shoulder, not low to keep the joint from arguing. I slid the mylar blanket under our shirts to hold heat but not shine. We wrapped our phones in the extra mylar and powered them down. If they tagged us, we wouldn't tag ourselves. Later we'd find the tracker. Right now we'd stop feeding it. Sideways again, then down. A deer path thin as a pencil line. A dry gully. A spill of duff 10 inches deep. Every step was a meeting with gravity where we insisted on terms. When the grade eased, trees took us in like ushers with good training. Pine, shadow, air that knew our names. We stopped under a fallen log the length of a bus and drank the first inches of a bottle like it was a contract. Rule 1, I said, because rules are handrails. We choose every sound on purpose. Rule 2, we keep warm and small. Rule 3, we don't let the story get ahead of the evidence. Hal smiled with the tight-cornered grin he uses when a plan grows bones. Rule 4, he added, eat when you're not hungry so you don't get stupid later. We split a bar that tasted like a field that had gone to college. The gully wore a faint boot print where it shouldn't have. Fresh tread to wide for hours. Not rescue. Not hiker. Hal crouched, winced, and pointed to a smear of oil dark on a rock. People come in here who shouldn't, he said. We are not interesting to them today. We ghosted the creek bed until it found a culvert and a service road that didn't want company. The sun lifted and then began its slow, merciful sink. Afternoon gave us shadows thick enough to wear. We crawled into the blackberry tangle beside the road and made a nest. Hal laced our packs together with Kayla's cheerful photo cord and looped it around his ankle, a tripwire you can feel. We dozed in fits, the kind where your soul keeps its coat on. Near dusk, a truck groaned past Forest Service green, radio hissing. Hal's hand tightened over the cord. Not yet, he breathed. We need to be ghosts a few hours more. He was right. If Trevor and Kayla believed we were gone, they would talk with the confidence of the unobserved. The first call is always the ugliest. We wanted it on record. When dark settled, we did the hard thing. We didn't move toward help. We made a cache instead under the log, in a gap only hands could find. Hal tucked one bottle in half the gauze there with a note in our shorthand to smudges and a slash in case we had to backtrack in a hurry. I readied my sling tighter and practiced lifting my arm to exactly where it wouldn't betray me. We whispered logistics until they became liturgy. At first light we'd cut across to an old trail. Hal remembered an unmarked fire line that paralleled the ridge to a service gate. From there, a mile of downhill would put us near a maintenance shed only rangers used. We'd stay in the tree line, step in old prints, and leave no fresh gossip for anyone's camera. We made our faces new. I scraped pine soot onto Hal's cheek, and he did the same for me, less recognizable if a lens got curious. We took off our bright bandanas and stuffed them deep. When we finally powered a phone for 60 seconds to check time and compass, the lock screen lit us like a stage. I turned it face down at once. Somewhere, the AirTag notification slapped patient. Tomorrow we'd tear the car apart. Around midnight, coyotes held a thin choir in the far draw. We ate the second bar and pretended it was pie. Hal's hand found mine in the dark and pressed 3 times. We've said I love you like that since Ryan was born and sleep was rationed. Dawn made a quiet promise and kept it. We moved with it. The fire line was there, a faint seam of old cuts and smarter shade. On the ridge, a point of white glinted where the overlook sat pretending to be scenic. I pictured Kayla's staged panic, Trevor's convenient phone call, the way people clap for a performance they don't understand. At the second switchback we found a glimmer of cell bars, 1, then 2. We didn't call 911. We called nobody. We opened the voice memo app and named a file if we don't make it. Then we spoke in turns: date, time, trail name, weather, known injuries, who was with us, who pushed. We described Kayla's hands on my pack, Trevor's whisper, the AirTag alert. We recorded where we'd cached the supplies and the way to the service gate. We ended with our names. Evidence doesn't need adjectives. It needs edges. At the service gate, we waited until a pair of hikers clattered up the main trail, young, loud, oblivious to everything but their playlist. We let them pass, then crossed behind them so any camera that caught movement would think we were theirs. The maintenance shed crouched in its gravel square like a dog that didn't bite unless asked. A sign on the door said authorized only. We were authorized by survival. We slid behind the shed and sank into the shade. My whole body felt like a radio between stations, hissing. Hal counted his ribs again, nodded the same grim nod. Next, he said. Next, I answered, and for the first time since the push I saw the day after this one. We were not out. We were on a plan, on a line, on the part of the story where people who think you're finished set down their masks. We would let them. We would listen. And then, when the timing belonged to us, we would walk into town and be alive in public. We waited behind the maintenance shed until the light got thin enough to forgive faces. Disappearing isn't magic. It's a sequence. We said it out loud like a recipe so our nerves would obey. Step 1. Feed the wrong story. We couldn't climb back to the overlook, but we could salt the ravine. On the way down, we'd pocketed the bright bandanas that would get us noticed. Now we tied one to a snag where searchers would eventually look torn, weather caught, honest as wind. Hal palmed a cracked trekking pole tip he'd found in the scree and tucked it into a crevice downstream. We didn't stage a crime. We let the terrain suggest an accident and left. Step 2. Shrink the signal. Phone stayed off, wrapped in mylar. If an AirTag was riding with us, we wouldn't help it. We kept our voices low and our choices smaller. No flashlights, no shortcuts, no heroics. Panic hurries. Survival edits. Step 3. Change the view. At dusk we shadowed the fire road to a picnic pullout with a bulletin board full of last summer. A family had left a forgotten hoodie folded on the end of a bench, blue, large, clean. I left $20 under it and pulled it on. Hal trimmed his beard with the tiny scissors in our first aid kit. I tucked my curls under a ball cap we found in the litter bag by the grill. Head up, eyes soft. The posture of people no one remembers. A mile farther, the service road met county asphalt. We waited where Blackberry made a dark throat and let 3 cars pass, the gleam of weekend, the hum of a delivery van, the thump of a bass that didn't care who we were. When the van came back, the driver slowed to toss a newspaper at a gated drive. Hal stepped out with 2 fingers raised the way men ask for a favor without asking for debt. Town, the driver said. I've got 10 minutes. 10 is perfect, Hal answered. We rode in silence, hands easy, eyes counting landmarks we could use later. He dropped us at a park and ride lot on the edge of a feeder town gas station. Diner, the kind of motor court that has numbers painted large because hope is small. Step 4. Cash and aliases that aren't lies. We had $60 in our waist belts and a rule we've kept since Ryan was little. Cash buys peace. The motor court took it without blinking. Name? The clerk asked, bored. Eleanor Bennett, I said, because the truth is easier to carry if you plan to use it in court. My husband Harold. He copied our license numbers off a card we kept for emergencies, the old expired ones with our middle names still spelled out. He didn't scan them. The system was mostly a drawer. Room 7 smelled like lemon and wanting. I washed the grit off my face with a washcloth that thought it was a cloud and laid our gear out like a patient. Hal sat on the edge of the bed and breathed through his rib. 2 hours, he said. Then we take a walk. Step 5. Tools, not toys. At the gas station, under humming fluorescent, we bought what vanishing requires. A spiral notebook. A pack of pens that worked the first time. 2 disposable flip phones paid with cash. And a call recorder dongle the clerk kept for truckers who like souvenirs. The law in our state recognizes one-party consent. When the time came, my voice would be the party. We added a roll of black electrical tape, a small flashlight, and 3 protein bars that tasted like compliance. Back in room 7, I wrote the date at the top of the first page and made a log: times, places, names, exact words. Evidence wears a belt and suspenders. Hal powered one flip phone long enough to pass its setup screens and then turned it off again. The number would be ours when we wanted it to be. We practiced connecting the recorder: click in, test, click out until muscle memory didn't need instructions. Step 6. Let them talk. We did not call the police. Not yet. If Trevor and Kayla believed gravity had finished us, they would begin the next part of their plan: money, property, lies, and they would do it on tape or on text. I set an alarm for 8 o'clock a.m., the hour when anxious people make messy phone calls, and another for 9:30, when bold ones do. Hal slept in slices. I lay awake and rehearsed the voice I would use when it was time. Smaller than my rage, calmer than my pulse. The voice of a mother who picks up when a son thinks the world is empty. I also rehearsed the other voice, the one that would leave a voicemail on a bank manager's line at dawn. Do not transact until in person with ID. We weren't warning Trevor. We were locking doors he didn't know we could reach. At first light, we walked the perimeter like we were learning a new house. The bus stop across the boulevard ran into town. The thrift store opened at 10 and would have jackets that don't photograph. The library opened at 9. Its computers could print a fresh copy of our medical directives in case someone tried for your own good on paper. We noted cameras where they pointed, where they didn't. The clerk at the diner called everyone honey and would remember kindness better than faces. Back in the room, I dialed the first bank on a landline that clicked like a memory. This is Eleanor Bennett, I said, using the tone people use when their accounts are theirs. Place a temporary hold on any new power of attorney or beneficiary changes. I will appear in person with ID to remove the hold. Please note the file. The manager took my password and my com and set the flag. Then I turned on the flip phone and typed the shortest bait. That could still be true. Trevor, it's Mom. Call me. Private. I hit send and placed the phone down on the nightstand where the recorder's cable lay like a promise. We weren't ghosts. We were witnesses building a room where the truth could sit down and put its feet up. Our job for the rest of the day was boring on purpose. Eat, hydrate, log everything, and wait for someone who thought he'd gotten away with it to pick up a phone and prove he hadn't. The motel clock sang 6:12 in red digits when my phone lit by itself, unknown AirTag moving with you, the same sentence that had blinked in the car before the push. The alert doesn't care about your feelings. It cares about proximity. Kayla's hands on my pack had not been help. They were placement. We powered the phone for 60 seconds, nothing more. I tapped find nearby and felt the phone turn into a dowsing rod. A white circle pulsed. Closer. Farther. The signal peaked at my backpack's hip strap. Hal slid the seam with the first aid scissors like a surgeon who also cans peaches. Out slid a coin, white, smug, taped in black electrical with a hair of my own sweater lint stuck under it. Evidence 1. I said aloud to make it real. We photographed it in place, then on the towel, then with the serial number shown after an NFC tap. I wrote the digits in our log, boxed a coin in a Ziploc, labeled E1 pack tag room 706, 18 LE initials. We removed its battery last photo before video. During so a future lawyer couldn't claim we'd staged a beep. Hal's jaw worked. If there's one, There's two. He was right more often than he was comfortable saying. We dressed in thrift store anonymity at 10 sharp, hoodie for me, soft cap for him, and walked to the park and ride bus. We sat in the shadowed back, heads close, hands separate. The driver called everyone buddy and didn't ask us to be anyone else. We got off 4 stops from home. Our street felt like a photograph of safety. I didn't like that it still could. We cut the alley, slipped through the side gate, and entered the garage the way owners do without hesitation. My old sedan sat as I'd left it 2 days ago, dust on the hood spelling the word tomorrow where I dragged my finger to remind myself the future still happened. Phone on. Unknown AirTag moving with you. Not the pack this time. The phone swung like a divining line toward the rear. The beep once we dared to play sound came faint and stubborn through carpet and sheet metal. We emptied the trunk, blanket, grocery totes, a winter kit Robert had insisted on back when winters had personalities. The beep grew louder near the spare tire well. Hal eased the liner back. There, taped to the underside of the deck with the same black ribbon and the same cheap confidence, sat its twin. I felt anger reach for a match. I gave it a ledger. Photograph serial log, I said. We repeated the sacrament. Inside to photos, NFC tab to surface the serial, and the link Apple shows to anyone who bothers to care. A close shot of the tape and dust pattern that proved time. We didn't wipe. Prints our stories. Let them talk later. E2 trunk tag garage 1050 for Ellie initials. We debated battery removal. Leaving it live would keep leading someone to us. Killing it would end the stalking but erase a trail. Compromise. We filmed the removal, read the serial into camera, and then nested the coin alive inside 2 layers of mylar and a coffee tin our improvised Faraday. If Trevor tried to check his map, he'd see the last place we let him. Kayla placed the pack tag herself, I said. The trunk one's older. Hal nodded toward the sedan's tail. Dust under the tape says weeks. He pointed to a faint scratch near the latch new. I logged that too. Details our friends later. Inside the house we didn't linger. We walked room to room like auditors, passports in the firebox, medical directives in the desk, a thumb drive labeled taxes that wasn't. I slid the drive into my pocket and replaced it with an empty twin. Let anyone who came hunting find decoys and doubt. On the kitchen counter I swapped the landline message from cheerful to clerkly and left 1 sentence for the first detective who would eventually listen. If you are Detective Owens, check evidence log inside freezer. We put a photocopy of E1E2 under a frozen bag of peas. Paranoia is just planning with better lighting. We locked up and left by the back, crossing 2 yards whose dogs had learned our names. At the bus stop, I did one more small, mean thing that felt like survival. I seated a decoy. We stuck a thrift store backpack under the bench with a dead AirTag taped inside serial recorded. Battery removed with a library checkout slip to a branch across town in the pocket. If Trevor or Kayla were checking pings, let them walk circles somewhere that didn't have us in it. Back at room 7 we spread our haul like a picnic of facts. 2 tags, 2 serials, 3 angles of every photo, a chain of custody line that would make a bored clerk care. I added the iPhone alert screenshots to the log and printed date or time on each with a pen because pixels lie nicer than ink. Only then did we let ourselves exhale. Next moves, Hal said. 2 tracks, I answered. Quiet Law and Loud Money. He grinned without humor. Quiet Law meant Detective Karen Owens, the only person in our city who had ever looked at me like a witness instead of someone in the way. Not today. Not yet. When we called her, it would be with a file she could hand to a DA who didn't have to pretend. Loud Money meant banks holds, do not transact, and a manager who would answer a voicemail that sounded like policy, not panic. My flip phone buzzed on the nightstand, a tentative insect learning how to be thunder. 1 new text from Trevor. Mom? No full sentence. Guilt doesn't conjugate well. I didn't answer. Not yet. I set the recorder on the bedspread and rehearsed my voice until it carried air. And nothing else. If he called, the coin in the tin would be quiet, the notebook would be open, and the day would finally show its teeth. I wrote 1 last line under E2. Stalking is a plan, not a feeling. Then I capped my pen and waited for our son to tell us who he had decided to be. Trevor picked the trail, which should have been my first warning. He hates dirt. Easy loop, Mom, he said, The word easy stretched thin as cellophane. Kayla smiled with her wedding photo smile and handed me a brand new trekking pole for balance. The morning was postcard blue, the kind of Colorado day that makes you forgive everything. On the drive up, my phone chimed with a message I'd never seen before. Unknown AirTag moving with you. I frowned. Kayla leaned forward from the back seat and laughed. Probably someone's keys in the next car, she said, tapping the screen like she was shooing a fly. I let it go, the way mothers let too much go. At the trailhead, Kayla tightened the strap on my pack, fingers lingering longer than help requires. There, she said brightly, wouldn't want you to slip. How my hell, 62, stubborn as a pine, offered me his hand. Short walk, he murmured, then pie. We were grandparents who still told each other the truth in small jokes. We were also walking into a plan. The overlook arrived like a dare. No guardrail, just a polite wooden post with a sun-bleached warning, sheer drop. The valley exhaled below a silver river, dark fir, hawk drawing cursive in the air. Trevor pretended to take pictures. Kayla pretended to fix my collar. Step closer, she said. The light is better. I did. Because for 35 years I have wanted my son's life to have good light. The push didn't feel like a shove. It felt like gravity changing its mind. A jolt, a gasp, the world tilting into white sky. Hal reached for me, missed, caught, missed again. We weren't screaming, there wasn't time. We fell past a skim of shale, past a tuft of grass that had no interest in heroics, and then the rock face took us the way hard things take you. With rules. We didn't fall far. A ledge arrested us like a seatbelt you never knew you owned. I hit first, shoulder and hip angles arguing. Hal hit second. Breath punched out, eyes wide with the old anger he carries for himself when he can't stop something. We lay there in a tangle of living. Above, footsteps, quick then quiet. Kayla's voice, small and practiced. Oh my God, Trevor. Call 911, she slipped. Trevor's answer was a whisper I felt in my bones more than heard with my ears. We leave now. The syllables fell like stones. I looked at Hal. His mouth made the shape of my name without sound. Blood had found his temple but didn't love it enough to stay. My shoulder was a siren. My legs reported for duty anyway. We listened. No running, no rope, no rescue. Just wind and the indifferent hymn of a hawk. Hal and I have been married long enough to have a vocabulary made of glances. In his I read, they meant it. In mine he found, then we choose what happens next. We die twice, I whispered, breath knitting. Once for them, once for us. Or we die once, the way we decide. He nodded, one precise nod that turned two frightened people into a team. He shrugged off his pack, wincing, and slid it toward me. Inside, the little redundancies of our lives. A Mylar blanket, 2 bottles of water, a roll of gauze, a coil of cord Kayla insisted we bring for selfies from trees. I smiled at that small feral. We inventory our hurts. Hal's rib on the left was talking too loud, but not shouting. My shoulder would need a doctor with good hands and a story to tell. Nothing was broken that bravery couldn't borrow against. We go sideways, Hal mouthed, pointing to a narrow shelf that stitched a cliff like an afterthought. Not up, not down. Sideways was faith with a foothold. I wrapped the Mylar around our packs to kill the shine. We belly crawled, inch by patient inch, palms testing grit, boots whispering on stone. The ledge squeezed, widened, squeezed again, like the mountain was deciding how much of us it could stand. After a crawl that lasted 5 minutes or 50 years, the shelf turned and gentled into a gully padded with needles and fallen time. Trees took us in. The breath I'd been saving finally arrived. We hit there, backs to rock, while my phone searched for a signal it wouldn't find. I pulled it out anyway. The AirTag alert had cleared, replaced by the ordinary arrogance of a battery icon. I thought of Kayla's hands on my pack again, tightening, smoothing, placing. I saw the future the way you sometimes see weather coming. Big, inevitable, and not impressed with you. Ellie, Hal said softly, listen to me. I'm listening. No police yet. Not out here. We need dark. We need distance. And we need proof. If they think we're dead, they'll talk. If they talk, We catch it. The hawk tipped a wing and wrote yes on the air. Hal wasn't guessing. He was confessing an old instinct that had kept us safe more than once. Let bad men relax before you put the cuffs on. I nodded again and let the plan take me like a current. Night. Proof. Notifying only the kind of law that knows how to stand still. We would feed the part of the story that kept us breathing and starve the part that thought it was finished with us. We took stock of what we had. Water, gauze, cord, a cheap whistle, 2 stubborn hearts, and a marriage fluent in triage. What we didn't have: immediate help, certainty, mercy we could borrow from time if we didn't panic. First rule, I said, because rules are blankets. No heroics. Second, no phones unless we're sure they can't find us by them. Third, we pick the moment when we stop being dead. Hal's smile was a crack in stone, letting something green be possible. He kissed my scraped knuckles like a contract. Pie later, he said. Pie later. I agreed, and we began the long, deliberate work of surviving a day that had tried to write our ending. Trevor, I said into the motel air, the recorder's red eye steady. Before his words could walk in and make a mess, I needed to tell you the thing that made that call useful. The ranger. That afternoon we went to the district office like ordinary people asking about maps. The lobby smelled of wet hats and pine cleaner. A woman in green named Bar M. Collins noticed a sling I'd tied from thrift cotton and the way Hal guarded his breath. You two hikers? She asked, voice low enough to make you feel safe answering badly. Careful ones, Hal said. With questions better suited to a back room, she studied our faces, the way pros do when truth knocks with its elbows. Break, she told the desk volunteer, then led us down a hall lined with wildfire posters to a kitchen where mugs hang like medals. She closed the door, sat, and waited without tapping a pen. The patience of someone who can find you in a blizzard. I put the blue spiral on the table, open to our log, and let the facts set themselves down. The push, the AirTag alerts, the Trump tag, the cut brake line and Caleb's bagged hose, the work order, the cam clips, the do not transact calls queued for evening. No adjectives, edges only. She didn't interrupt. When I finished, she asked exactly 2 questions. Do you want rescue or evidence? And do you trust any cop by name? Evidence, I said. And Detective Karen Owens. Ranger Maya Collins nodded like a plan had just picked its shoes. Then here's how I help. Without tipping a search that sends your son a courtesy call, she unfolded a ranger map and a Sharpie. This is where us and our trailers park. This is where every trail camera faces. And this, she drew a dotted line, is a service path no tourist uses. If you enter the forest for any reason, step in old prints, not beside them. At night, your flashlight isn't a light. It's a letter. Don't write your name. She slid a brown evidence envelope across. Bag your tags and hose separately. Keep your originals. I'll take copies only, map photos, serials, the work order, the cam exports on a fresh thumb. Chain of custody matters. Your attorney will love you for this. We labeled each copy right there. E1C, E2C, E4C, E5C, initials and time. She sealed them, signed the seams, and wrote hold for D. Owens on the flap. Why not open a case now? Hal asked. Because panic makes sloppy criminals careful, she said. If they think you're dead, they'll step wrong inside a bank, a call, a deemer. Give them that rope. Meanwhile, I log a quiet incident, no names in the public blotters, so if anything happens to you between here and court, a judge can see your caution wasn't hindsight. She opened a drawer and set heat packs, a roll of Coban, and a packet of butterfly closures on the table. For tonight, and for the call you're clearly about to make, you live in a one-party consent state. Keep your voice soft, ask short questions, let him fill the air. Don't say trap. Say tell me. Do we owe search and rescue anything? I asked. You owe them clarity later, she said, when you're safe. For now, you owe yourselves a good record and a door that locks. We walked the map with her finger camera blind spots, gate pads that sometimes sit loose on their chains, the maintenance shed we'd already found. She marked an X on our cache under the fallen log. If I ever have to send a team, I want them to find your breadcrumbs without broadcasting them. Will you call Owens? I asked. When you walk out, she said. From my phone. Not yours. At the door, she looked at my sling the way mothers look at a bruise they can't fix. One more thing. Don't go home tonight. People who cut brake lines also read porch lights. Sleep where the towels are thin and the clerk forgets last names. Back in room 7, we laid her copies beside ours. 2 neat stacks of future. I wrote E7 Ranger Map Annotations Copy 16, 10 LEM. Collins, then underlined hold for Owens. Hal tucked the heat packs into the bedside drawer like blessings. And now we are here again. The recorder staring, the tin humming its quiet lie, and the motel clock making a red promise across a cheap nightstand. Trevor, I said, a breath on the line, ragged with the kind of fear that doesn't know its own name. Mom? Oh God, Mom, are you? I'm here, I said, and Ranger Collins's 2 rules sat on my tongue. Short questions. Let him talk. Where are you? He blurted. There were sirens, I mean. We called. I've been sick. Kayla, she's a mess. What happened on the Overlook, Trevor? Silence stretched, then thinned. It was an accident. You slipped. Tell me. I repeated, soft as a blanket edge. He started to talk. The recorder took each word like a deposit slip. And somewhere 2 blocks from a forest, a ranger's phone lit with Detective Owens's name, and a map with black Sharpie began its long journey toward a courtroom where fluorescent lights prefer verbs over tears. Trevor picked the trail, which should have been my first warning. He hates dirt. Easy loop, Mom, he said. The word easy stretched thin as cellophane. Kayla smiled with her wedding photo smile and handed me a brand new trekking pole for balance. The morning was postcard blue, the kind of Colorado day that makes you forgive everything. On the drive up, my phone chimed with a message I'd never seen before. Unknown AirTag moving with you. I frowned. Kayla leaned forward from the back seat and laughed. Probably someone's keys in the next car, she said, tapping the screen like she was shooing a fly. I let it go, the way mothers let too much go. At the trailhead, Kayla tightened the strap on my pack, fingers lingering longer than help requires. There, she said brightly, wouldn't want you to slip. How my hell, 62, stubborn as a pine, offered me his hand. Short walk, he murmured, then pie. We were grandparents who still told each other the truth in small jokes. We were also walking into a plan. The Overlook arrived like a dare. No guardrail, just a polite wooden post with a sun-bleached warning, sheer drop. The valley exhaled below a silver river, dark fir, hawk drawing cursive in the air. Trevor pretended to take pictures. Kayla pretended to fix my collar. Step closer, she said. The light is better. I did. Because for 35 years I have wanted my son's life to have good light. The push didn't feel like a shove. It felt like gravity changing its mind. A jolt, a gasp, the world tilting into white sky. Hal reached for me, missed, caught, missed again. We weren't screaming, there wasn't time. We fell past a skim of shale, past a tuft of grass that had no interest in heroics, and then the rock face took us the way hard things take you. With rules. We didn't fall far. A ledge arrested us like a seatbelt you never knew you owned. I hit first, shoulder and hip angles arguing. Hal hit second. Breath punched out, eyes wide with the old anger he carries for himself when he can't stop something. We lay there in a tangle of living. Above, footsteps, quick then quiet. Kayla's voice, small and practiced. Oh my God, Trevor. Call 911, she slipped. Trevor's answer was a whisper I felt in my bones more than heard with my ears. We leave now. The syllables fell like stones. I looked at Hal. His mouth made the shape of my name without sound. Blood had found his temple but didn't love it enough to stay. My shoulder was a siren. My legs reported for duty anyway. We listened. No running, no rope, no rescue. Just wind and the indifferent hymn of a hawk. Hal and I have been married long enough to have a vocabulary made of glances. In his I read. They meant it. In mine he found. Then we choose what happens next. We die twice, I whispered, breath knitting. Once for them. Once for us. Or we die once. The way we decide. He nodded, one precise nod that turned 2 frightened people into a team. He shrugged off his pack, wincing, and slid it toward me. Inside, the little redundancies of our lives. A Mylar blanket, 2 bottles of water, a roll of gauze, A coil of cord Kayla insisted we bring for selfies from trees. I smiled at that small feral. We inventory our hurts. Hal's rib on the left was talking too loud, but not shouting. My shoulder would need a doctor with good hands and a story to tell. Nothing was broken that bravery couldn't borrow against. We go sideways, Hal mouthed, pointing to a narrow shelf that stitched a cliff like an afterthought. Not up, not down. Sideways was Faith with a foothold. I wrapped the mylar around our packs to kill the shine. We belly crawled, inch by patient inch, palms testing grit, boots whispering on stone. The ledge squeezed, widened, squeezed again, like the mountain was deciding how much of us it could stand. After a crawl that lasted 5 minutes or 50 years, the shelf turned and gentled into a gully padded with needles and fallen time. Trees took us in. The breath I'd been saving finally arrived. We hit there, backs to rock, while my phone searched for a signal it wouldn't find. I pulled it out anyway. The AirTag alert had cleared, replaced by the ordinary arrogance of a battery icon. I thought of Kayla's hands on my pack again, tightening, smoothing, placing. I saw the future the way you sometimes see weather coming. Big, inevitable, and not impressed with you. Ellie, Hal said softly, listen to me. I'm listening. No police yet. Not out here. We need dark. We need distance. And we need proof. If they think we're dead, they'll talk. If they talk, we catch it. The hawk tipped a wing and wrote yes on the air. Hal wasn't guessing. He was confessing an old instinct that had kept us safe more than once. Let bad men relax before you put the cuffs on. I nodded again and let the plan take me like a current. Night. Proof. Notifying only the kind of law that knows how to stand still. We would feed the part of the story that kept us breathing and starve the part that thought it was finished with us. We took stock of what we had. Water, gauze, cord, a cheap whistle, 2 stubborn hearts, and a marriage fluent in triage. What we didn't have: immediate help, certainty, mercy we could borrow from time if we didn't panic. First rule, I said, because rules are blankets. No heroics. Second, no phones unless we're sure they can't find us by them. Third, we pick the moment when we stop being dead. Hal's smile was a crack in stone, letting something green be possible. He kissed my scraped knuckles like a contract. Pie later, he said. Pie later. I agreed, and we began the long, deliberate work of surviving a day that had tried to write our ending. We don't meet predators on their schedule. We pick the room, the clock, and the rules on the wall. At AM, we walked into the ranger office with a manila envelope thick with proof. Ranger Collins took us straight to the back. Detective Karen Owens was already there, plain suit, hair up, eyes that didn't blink unless they had to. Collins slid her the copies we'd sealed the night before, E1C 7C. I handed over a fresh SD card with E8 recorded call. Trevor Owens plugged in earbuds and listened without commentary, only a pencil tapping the paper when Trevor said nudge, beneficiaries, power of attorney, breaks, and Willow at 11. She took the buds out. This is sufficient for warrants, she said. Attempted homicide is going to move faster than paper crimes. But today, we can stop the money and capture fresh acts. You keep breathing. I'll call the financial crime sergeant and the dawn call. We built the plan at the ranger's kitchen table. Owens called the Willow branch and asked for manager Denise Park on a recorded line. Script. Stall phrases only. No tips. No heroics. You will not process any POA beneficiary change or transfer, Owens said. You will ask them to sit in the conference room while your system updates. When I say audit hold, you press your silent alert. I left my own message for Miss Park. Calm voice. Simple request. Place a do not transact on new authorities for my accounts until I'm in the room with ID. Note a trusted contact. Flag Detective Owens and log any attempts by Trevor Bennett or Kayla Bennett. Miss Park confirmed by email within minutes. We printed and logged at E9 bank hold confirmation time. Sender, headers, next, insurance and credit. We set no change flags on live policies, froze credit files, and killed reset by phone on every portal that would let me. Each confirmation went into the notebook, because armor should be boring and numbered. E10 insurer no change acts. E11 credit freeze. Receipts. Owens texted Ada Nora Blake name from Collins's short list. 10 minutes later, Blake arrived with a lean brief and a pen that clicked like an oath. We'll stage it as a financial exploitation attempt with an overlay of attempted homicide, she said. Probable cause is the call, the tags, the brake hose, and their own mouths when they ask a banker to help them steal. We'll take them in soft at 10:20. We moved. Collins drove us in a Ranger truck no one looks at twice. Owens went ahead to Willow to brief the branch team. You to use the side door, she told us over the phone. Conference room B. Blinds down. You watch. You don't wave. Inside the bank, everything smelled like lemon wipes and risk. Miss Park shook my hand once and didn't waste words. Room B, Mrs. Bennett. She handed me a printed internal red card. DN do not transact on file. Stall script ready. We labeled it E12 branch DN card and slid it into the envelope. I sat with Hal behind slatted blinds and watched the lobby through quarters of light. At 10:57, Trevor and Kayla arrived. He wore contrition like a rented suit. She wore white like it was still the bridal season in her head. Kayla carried a manila folder with a notary tab sticking out like a proud tail. I could imagine the contents. Seminar templates, half-completed POA, a care agreement that converted love into wages, and a beneficiary change form printed at home. The greeter gave them the smile banks give wolves in cardigans and walked them to Miss Park's desk. Park opened the folder with 2 fingers and never fully smiled. We can certainly review, she said in a tone that resets clocks. Let me bring you to a private room while I refresh the system. In conference hours was B. A pane of glass became a stage. Park spread the papers. For any new powers, we require the principal. She nodded toward the glass that couldn't see us to be present, lucid, and to sign in front of our notary. For beneficiaries, we require the owner's in-person confirmation. We're just getting ready, Kayla said smoothly. She's confused lately. We'll bring her later. She slid a POA across. Could you pre-stage this? Park didn't blink. Our policy doesn't allow pre-staging of authority. I can scan these into your notes. She tapped a keyboard that wasn't moving. The system is running a monthly audit right now. It's slow. Trevor leaned forward. We don't have a lot of time. She's not doing well. We need to make sure survivorship and transfers won't be a problem. He tried a smile that had convinced me of things when he was 8. It didn't move the glass. Park used the first stall phrase Owens had scripted. I understand. Let me verify the account profile and confirm whether there's a do not transact hold. She said the last words clean and professional, as if she were reading the weather. Kayla's head jerked a degree. Predators hate paperwork that knows their names. Park excused herself, walked to a side phone, and said 2 words into the mouthpiece. Audit hold. Somewhere behind the vault, the silent alarm coughed softly and sent a note to the precinct. Back in the room, Kayla changed tactics. We could open a new account, she said brightly. Joint. With my husband as primary. Funds can be gifted to us for care. The IRS allows gifts or the account owner's choice, Park said. And all new accounts require source of funds verification. Trevor tried the last leverage he had. My mother wants this, he said. She told me. She said the house is too much. She said I should be on her accounts. Can't you just? Park smiled the way professionals do right before a door opens. We'll need to speak with her to confirm consent. He opened his mouth to lie. The branch doors slid wide. Detective Owens walked in with 2 plain clothes and the posture of a fact. She didn't look at the glass. She went straight to Miss Park. Morning. Financial crimes, she said at normal lobby volume, showing a wallet badge that had seen rooms like this before. We'll take your conference room. Of course, Park said. A is free. Owens turned to Trevor and Kayla with the kindness of an X-ray. Mr. Bennett? Miss Bennett? I'm Detective Owens. I'd like to clear up some questions about a hiking incident and about what you're attempting here. Kayla's fingers went flat over the manila folder. Trevor's throat worked. Through the slats I felt my pulse slow down to something that could learn to live here. Owens's voice didn't rise. This will be voluntary for the next 10 seconds. After that, it changes shape in the hallway. A uniform stepped into view. Then another. Park moved with unbothered grace to close the lobby door and flip a small sign to please wait. Breathe, Hal whispered. I did. The money trap had its lid on. The handcuffs were a chapter away. Handcuffs don't sound like on television. They click once, metal deciding, and then the room gets very quiet so everybody can hear their own heart. We watched through the slats as Detective Owen stepped in, badge forward, tone level. Trevor Bennett, Kayla Bennett, you're detained while we investigate attempted homicide and financial exploitation of an elder. You're not under arrest yet. You are not required to speak. If you do, it may be recorded. Kayla tried to smile meant for weaker doors. Detective, this is a family banking matter. The Overlook isn't a bank, Owen said, and nodded. The plainclothes officer eased Trevor's wrists together. Click! Kayla's turn. Click! Miss Park's face didn't move, but I saw the private relief of a professional whose policy just grew a spine. Owen tapped the glass to let us know which script we were in. Ranger Collins opened our door and guided us into the hallway. This way, Mrs. Bennett. No theater, just lanes. At the precinct, we didn't tell our story again. We handed it over. E1 through E12 already lived in the case log. Owens added the branch's CCTV to the chain. E13 Willow Lobby, room 10, 5511, 12. Miss Park's internal stall card copy to the file, and Kayla's 9:31 a.m. text to our print stack. E14 Sims Kayla. No cops. 11 a.m. Willow. A tech in a soft hoodie bag, dark coffee tin Faraday with the live air tag inside. E to a tin plus dad and signed the seam with piety. Phones, Owen said to Trevor and Kayla across to metal. Tables. Consent to search? Their lawyer summoned mid-click from a card. Kayla kept shook his head. We'll seek a warrant, Owen said, not disappointed. She already had the call. Ada Nora Blake arrived with her calm briefcase and her indoor thunder. This is now to tracks, she told us in a small conference room. Violence and money. Your recordings and the bank attempt make probable cause. We'll hold them on the financial side while the lab confirms the rest. You don't have to give a statement today. We'll give a timeline only, I said, placing our spiral on the table. Verbs, not adjectives. She smiled like she'd been handed a clean exhibit. Down the hall, Owens began what she was born for: silence management. In the first interview room, Trevor's foot bounced until it learned the floor. In the second, Kayla sat very straight, hands folded over nothing. Owen started with the bank and policy, not the cliff. People confess more comfortably to paper. We understand you. Attempted to open a joint account and pre-stage a power of attorney, she said, gentle as a nurse. Why today? Her memory's failing, Kayla said. Perfect. We're caregivers. This is responsible. Who installed the AirTags? Owens asked, mild. Kayla blinked. What? The one taped inside the trunk. The one sewn into the pack seam. Trevor's chair squealed. Kayla looked at him like language had betrayed them. We never. Owens set a manila folder down and opened it to our E1E2 serial. Photos. Apple records the pairing Apple ID. The warrant will fetch that. If the tags are yours, say so. If they're not, say who owns them. They said nothing. Silence acquired weight. The warrants landed before lunch. Phones. Kayla's parents' house, their car. Officers returned with a manila folder we recognized by feel before side. E15 seminar packet, family POA bootcamp handouts, a half-completed power of attorney with my name spelled correctly, a care agreement template with hourly rates circled in pink, and a preprinted beneficiary change form sourced from my insurer's website. Tucked beside them, 2 AirTag boxes, one empty, one with the plastic still on. E16 packaging, a roll of black electrical tape. E17, and a utility knife dusted with rubber crumbs. E18 blade and residue. The lab would make its own song from those. Digital forensics was faster than fear. Kayla's iCloud produced a Find My screenshot with my street circled, labeled backup tag, her notes upheld. A checklist. Nudge call later, leave by 6. Trevor's search history, coughed, break hose cut vs. Where? One party consent state, and a trail to the Overlook marked by a saved shift roster screenshot from the Ranger District site. Owens printed the pages, marked the warrants on each E19 E23, and slid them into the file where paper makes gravity. At 3:40, Owens stepped into our room. We're shifting from detention to arrest, she said. Charges today: attempted murder 2 counts, conspiracy, stalking with a tracking device, attempted financial exploitation of an elder, and tampering with a motor vehicle. The DA will refine counts at arraignment. Bail. Hal asked. Requested high, Blake said. Risk of flight and witness tampering. As the paperwork rolled, a victim advocate arrived with the voice people use when a room needs gentleness. Do you have grandchildren? She asked. CPS will want to know if there's a safe relative for temporary placement. Ava and Liam, I said, and felt the new shape of our life stand up. Yes, us. Gal petition goes in tonight, Blake added. Emergency hearing tomorrow. We'll attach your do not transact logs and the call to show risk. Through the glass we watched a day reach for its last glove. Kayla kept her chin high until an evidence tech held up the utility knife bad and she recognized a store sticker with her own initials scrawled from a garage box. Trevor asked for water and didn't drink it. When Owens returned with printed Miranda cards, their lawyer put a hand on each shoulder and said the honest sentence. Don't talk. They didn't. Their phones did. The tags did. The knife did. The bank did. We didn't raise our voices. We signed where signatures belonged. On our way out, Miss Park called the precinct and asked to be transferred to me. Mrs. Bennett? We're closing your incident note with a comment, she said. Employee feedback. Client remained calm and policy-driven. For what it's worth. It's worth a lot, I told her. After we hung up, I wrote the line into our spiral and underlined policy-driven twice. Not because I needed the flattery, but because a branch manager just taught me a new way to name courage. Evening put a blue coin in the sky and let it sit. Ranger Collins dropped us at the motel with 2 steaming cups and a bag of hotel laundry eyes for my shoulder. Tomorrow, she said, we start a different map. Inside room 7, we laid the day on the bed like clean clothes. E13 through E23 bulged the envelope. The handcuff clicks were no longer a sound. They were a date stamp. I wrote the chapter title I hadn't earned yet at the bottom of the page. 2 backpacks, 2 beds. Then I added our rule again. Because endings are just places to remind yourself how you walked. We chose the ledger, not the match. Arraignment came with gray suits, fluorescent light, and a clock that refused to help anyone. Ada Nora Blake spoke in sentences that fit inside folders. Charges were read. The judge asked if Trevor and Kayla understood. They nodded like students who hadn't done the reading. Bail set high. Risk of flight. Risk of witness tampering. Risk of accidental goodbyes. The handcuffs left small bracelets of red they couldn't explain away. The next morning belonged to Ava and Liam. Family court breeds. Different air, quieter, protective, alert for small shoes. The gal had already visited our house at dawn, looked into the refrigerator like it could testify, checked smoke detectors, asked where medicines sleep. She spoke to the kids briefly at their other grandparents' kitchen table and wrote in quick pencil, Ava clings. Liam watches doors. Judge Morales heard exactly what she needed. Detective Owens on stalking AirTags, Ada Blake on attempt and financial exploitation, Miss Park's statement about do not transact, Caleb's declaration about the cut break line. Our spiral stayed closed. The case file had learned to speak without us. Temporary custody to the Bennetts, the judge said, voice level as a ruler. Supervised visitation for the parents at the court center. No contact outside mediation. No changes to schooling without court approval. Next review in 30 days. Counsel, draft the order. The gavel was gentle. Some mercies are. We drove straight to the center with 2 new backpacks we'd filled at sunrise-colored pencils, soft socks, a dinosaur toothbrush for Liam, a glitter one for Ava, 2 paperback books that know how to hush night. They came out holding a social worker's hand, eyes doing the work adults should have done for them. Ava ran first, brave as pretend. Liam looked at Hal's hands, found the calluses, and decided that meant something. We didn't promise forever. We promised dinner. Home had prepared itself like a good host. The twin beds we'd ordered had arrived an hour before the hearing, white frames that don't pretend to be castles, firm mattresses, sheets with stars. Hal tightened the last Allen bolt while I labeled drawers with tape you can peel without making furniture cry. We hung a paper moon and a paper sun from the curtain rod time made visible for small people whose clocks had been broken by grown-ups. We kept the first day simple. Grilled cheese, sliced apples, carrot sticks, water that pretends to be fancy because it has ice. We let them choose plates. We let silence sit where questions usually push. After baths that smelled like ordinary, Hal read the tale of Peter Rabbit in the voice he reserves for trouble that gets corrected by bedtime. I tucked in their names. After lights out, I stood in the hallway and listened. The house made the sounds of a body remembering sleep, air vent hush, water line tick, the long patient exhale of a refrigerator that never asks for thanks. The world had not forgiven everything. It had agreed to stop shouting. Paper didn't sleep. Emails arrived like soft knocks. The temporary order, the visitation schedule, a note from Miss Park account flags remain in place. Call when you're ready to review security in person. Ranger Collins sent a 2-word text, proud of you, and an emoji that looked exactly like a pine. In the days that followed, we learned our new map by walking it. Therapy intake for the children, a protective order extension, locks rekeyed by Mr. Ortiz with longer screws, and a lecture about strike plates that sounded like scripture. I added a trusted adult list by the phone. Collins, Owens, Blake, Pastor Irene, Miss Carter, and to be Caleb. Not many names, the right ones. Trevor's lawyer filed a motion for bail modification. The judge denied it with a sentence that kept its code on. Risk profile unchanged. Kayla made a statement to a morning show from County Orange. The host tried sympathy until the producers saw our file and decided ratings prefer verbs to tears. We didn't answer reporters. We baked. The first supervised visit arrived like weather. Ava drew pictures and narrated safe things. Liam climbed into Hal's lap and fell asleep with both fists around 2 of Hal's fingers. The monitor logged it as age-appropriate attachment. I logged it as mercy I didn't earn but will try to deserve. At home, we practice small routines that turn fear into furniture. Shoes in baskets, backpacks on hooks, dinner at 6, story at 7, lights at 8, a rule card on the fridge with 6 lines. We tell the truth even when it shakes. We use inside voices because the house is listening. We don't keep secrets. We keep surprises. We choose the ledger, not the match. We rest when it's time even if we aren't done. We are safe here. I left the porch light on a timer again, not for Trevor or Kayla, but for the versions of them that might one day learn to arrive with apologies that fit inside sentences. Love is not a door. It's a hinge. It can fail. From both sides. Mine will be oiled and watched, not flung open at the first knock. On a quiet Tuesday, Detective Owens called to say the lab had matched rubber residue on the utility knife to the brake hose. Ada Blake said the AirTag Apple ID subpoena had returned exactly the names we expected. The calendar began to fill with words like pretrial, disclosures, status conference. I put those dates on a paper planner with stickers Ava chose. When the kids asked what court is, I said, a place where grown-ups have to use their words and show their papers. The first night both children slept through, I lay awake anyway and let time stroke my hair. Hal reached over and pressed my hand 3 times, our oldest sentence. I pressed back. In the morning, 2 small voices shouted from the kitchen, Grandma, we can pour our own cereal. Milk sloshed, laughter argued with gravity, and the sun decided we'd earned its window. 2 backpacks by the door. 2 beds made messy in the good way. A house that knows the sound of children again. On the counter, our blue spirals stayed open to a fresh page with a title I would have chosen even if life hadn't chosen it for me. We chose the ledger, not the match. And then 1 line under it, written in new handwriting with a purple pencil. We're home.